My name is Carter Blake. I'm 34 years old, a full-time freelance photographer based in Bend, Oregon. I've built my career one frame at a time, shooting everything from destination weddings to wildlife features for national magazines. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work, and I'm good at it. Just not good enough, apparently, for my in-laws, especially Margot, my mother-in-law. How's the little photo hobby her husband Richard would ask at every family dinner, swirling wine he didn't buy and barely hiding his disdain. He was a retired executive, the kind of man who measured worth in quarterly returns and country club memberships. Every Sunday dinner at their home followed a script. Margot fawned over their daughter Claire, while Richard picked apart my finances like a portfolio he was auditing. Claire would squeeze my hand beneath the table, her silent apology for their behavior. And I'd smile through it. That particular Friday, I'd just flown back from a shoot in the Bitterroots, 6 straight days, trudging through alpine snow, capturing elk for a conservation project. I was dead on my feet, but Claire insisted we go to her mom's birthday dinner. Just a couple of hours, she'd promised. I should have trusted that feeling in my gut when Margot cornered me in the kitchen. The way her eyes darted to the hallway, the strange smile that didn't reach her eyes, the tall glass she handed me. A little something special for my favorite son-in-law, she said. Her tone made it sound like a threat, disguised as charm. I thanked her, gave a tired smile, and casually switched glasses with Richard the moment her back was turned. He never even noticed. He was too busy lecturing Claire about interest rates. 45 minutes later, Richard was in the bathroom, pale and shaking. Margot was flustered, insisting it must have been the shellfish. And I just watched quietly, filing it away. Because something had changed. Claire and I had met 6 years earlier at a climate conference in Portland. She was wrapping up her graduate work in marine biology. I was showing my environmental series in a side gallery. We connected fast, deeply. She saw the world through data and field notes. I saw it through light and shadow. We fit. Her parents never thought so. From the very first brunch, Richard made it clear he'd expected someone else. Someone with a 401k and a firm handshake. Someone with a title that made sense to his friends. Margot was more subtle. She'd compliment my photos while asking when I planned to get serious. At parties, she introduced me as Claire's friend who takes pictures, never her husband. For years I tried. I brought fancy wine, shared my biggest publications, made small talk about market trends I didn't care about. Nothing worked. Last Thanksgiving I heard Margot on the phone. Claire could have had Ryan. You remember Ryan's Stanford law family in Napa. But she picked the artist. Artist. Like it was a character flaw. When Claire and I told them we were trying for a baby, Richard pulled me aside. Children are expensive. Might be time to think about real work, son. I never told Claire about any of it. She loved them in her way. And I didn't want to put her in the middle. So I played the game, smiled, helped with dishes, bit my tongue. But that night, when Margot handed me that glass, with trembling fingers, I knew. This wasn't just coldness. It was calculated. And I had just begun to understand how far they were willing to go. We'd been behind on our mortgage for 3 months. I was running on fumes, but I still showered, ironed a shirt, and drove Claire and me across town to her parents' colonial in one of the priciest zip codes in Bend. Dinner began like every other, Richard boasting about a recent real estate acquisition, Margot fussing over table placements, and Claire's younger brother Ethan and his wife making polite small talk. I nursed a craft beer and silently counted the minutes until I could leave. After the main course, Margot stood up with a theatrical flourish. I made my famous sangria for dessert, she announced, before disappearing into the kitchen. I stood up too. Let me help carry the glasses. When I stepped into the kitchen, I froze. There were 2 glasses set apart from the rest, already filled. As I entered, I saw Margot slip something into one of them from a tiny vial she thought no one saw. It wasn't fruit, wasn't syrup. It was clear. No color, no smell. She moved with practiced precision and tucked the vial into her purse the second she noticed me. "Oh, Carter, I've got this," she chirped too brightly. "That one's just for you. Special, mix for my favorite son-in-law." My throat tightened. I looked down and caught the shimmer of a faint film floating on top, barely visible under the kitchen light. "Let me carry these in," I said, casually, picking up both of the suspect glasses. Back at the table, Richard was checking something on his phone, not paying attention. "Sangria, sir," I said, placing the tampered glass in front of him, before setting my own aside and asking Claire for water instead. I watched him drink. 45 minutes later, Richard's face turned ashen. Sweating, he excused himself and sprinted to the downstairs bathroom. The sound of him vomiting echoed through the house. Margot's face went ghost pale the moment she realized what had happened. Her eyes locked with mine from across the table. In that moment, two things became crystal clear. My mother-in-law had tried to drug me. And she now knew that I knew. I didn't say a word. I didn't confront her. I simply ate my chocolate mousse while Claire rushed off after her father. Gerald insisted it was bad seafood. Margot stammered something about shrimp she'd gotten on discount. No one bought it. I quietly slipped the untouched sangria glass, the one meant for me, into my camera bag. Something cold settled inside me. Not rage, not fear, just purpose. I wasn't going to retaliate with yelling or threats. I was going to dismantle them methodically. That Monday I took the glass to a former client named Jason Knoll, a biochemist who now ran a private toxicology lab outside of town. "Professional or personal?" he asked, looking over the evidence I brought him. "Family," I said. "Messy one." 3 days later he called. "Carter, there were benzodiazepines in that drink. Nothing deadly, but enough to knock you out hard and possibly mess with memory. Where did this come from?" I thanked him, asked for a report in writing, and ignored his question. That night, I told Claire I wanted to skip Sunday dinners for a while, said I had to prep for an upcoming photography exhibit in Portland. She looked disappointed, but didn't question it. I didn't tell her about the lab results. Not yet. I needed more. Over the next 2 weeks, I dug deep. I found that Margot had prescriptions for Xanax from 3 different doctors. She'd been filling them simultaneously, lying on intake forms hoarding pills. And there were whispers around town. A meltdown at a charity gala. Accusations of theft at her golf club. Rumors the family had tried hard to suppress. I printed it all and waited. The opportunity came when Claire casually mentioned Margot needed new photos for a social media profile. "She specifically asked if you take them," she said, clearly surprised. "Sure," I said. "Happy to?" That Saturday I arrived at their house alone, camera gear in one hand and a sealed envelope in the other. Margot greeted me at the door in designer heels and too much perfume. "Gerald's out," she said, ushering me in. "Before we begin," I said softly, "I think you should read this first." I handed her the envelope. Inside, Jason's toxicology report and copies of her overlapping prescriptions. Her hands shook as she read. "This is ridiculous," she whispered. "You don't know what you're suggesting?" But I did. And she knew it too. "I would never," she began, voice trembling. "We both know what happened." I cut her off, keeping my tone even. "What I don't know is why." Elaine's expression hardened. "Because you're not good enough for my daughter." "You never were." Her voice rose. "A man should offer stability, not just pictures and passion projects." "And drugging your son-in-law offers stability," I asked, calm. "It wasn't going to hurt you," she snapped. "Just make you sick, make you miss that ridiculous gallery opening you've been gloating about for weeks. Haley needs to see you're not dependable." I let the silence stretch. Then finally, "Here is what happens next. You're going to tell Richard the truth, and after that, you're both going to start treating me with basic respect. Not because you've changed your minds, but because the alternative is Haley finding out exactly who her parents are. Elaine let out a shaky laugh. She'd never believe you over us. I picked up my camera bag slowly. Maybe not, but she'll believe a certified lab report. She'll believe the multiple overlapping prescriptions. And you know the neighbors you've alienated. Some of them would be very willing to talk. I walked out without snapping a single picture. That night Elaine called Haley. Sobbing claimed I'd been aggressive and inappropriate during our photo session. When Haley confronted me, I didn't lie. I showed her everything, the lab results, the overlapping prescriptions, even Elaine's increasingly hostile texts over the years. My mother wouldn't do this, Haley kept repeating, but even she didn't sound convinced. The next day, she confronted her parents alone. When she returned, she sat at the edge of our bed with red-rimmed eyes. "My father says it's all a misunderstanding," she whispered. "He thinks you're just trying to turn me against them." "And what do you think I asked?" gently. She didn't answer, just laid down and turned away from me. I'd stood up for myself, but now I was the villain in their narrative. Somehow they'd driven a wedge between us. For 2 weeks, Haley barely spoke. She started visiting them more often, returning home quieter than before. I threw myself into work, shooting long hours, editing late into the night, waiting for something to break. Then a package arrived. No return address. Just my name, written in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside a USB drive. A sticky note. "You should see this." Signed only Vanessa. The files were security footage. Gerald and Elaine's own home system from the night of the dinner. There she was, Elaine in the kitchen, tipping something from a vial into a wine glass. There I was, entering, unknowingly swapping the drinks. There was Gerald, drinking it. And then more footage. Later that night, Elaine screaming at Gerald, "Why the hell did you drink from the wrong glass? You never label anything." "This isn't the first time you've pulled something like this," Gerald shouted. Another clip 2 days later. Gerald and Elaine in the living room. "He knows Elaine. He knows what you did." So what she snapped. It's his word against mine. Haley will never pick him over her family. And if she does, she's not the daughter I raised. "Don't worry," she added. "I've already started dropping hints, talking to her about how distant he's been. By the time I'm done, she'll think the marriage problems were all her idea." I sat there frozen, hands shaking. This wasn't just hostility. It was calculated, coordinated. A long game meant to control Haley, to isolate her from anyone who didn't fit their mold. I called Vanessa right away. "Why did you send me this?" Her voice was soft. "Because they did the same thing to me when I married Owen. Said I wasn't good enough. Tried to break us up for 2 years. Why didn't you tell anyone?" "Owen doesn't know," she admitted. "He idolizes his dad. He wouldn't believe me. Thinks I'm paranoid." She paused. But I couldn't watch them do it again. "Not to you." I got a text from Richard later that evening. "Let's talk. Just as no wives." He asked me to meet him at his golf club outside Savannah. He was already seated in a private lounge when I arrived, nursing a glass of bourbon. "Caleb," he began, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Families are messy. My wife Elaine, she can be intense, even a little controlling. But her heart's in the right place." "Drugging someone is your idea of good intentions?" I asked. He scoffed and waved his hand like it accused her of overcooking dinner. "Elaine takes meds for her nerves. Probably got her drinks mixed up. It happens." "I have the footage," I said flatly. "From your own home security system." His entire demeanor shifted. The warmth drained from his expression. His voice turned icy. "So what do you want, Caleb? Money? Is this blackmail now? I always knew you married Anna for the comfort. You're not one of us." "I don't want your money," I said calmly. "I want you and Elaine to leave us alone. No more games. No more manipulation. No more whispering in her ear that I'm not good enough. He leaned forward, a slow smile creeping across his face. You think you're the first man we've had to handle, you're just another phase. Anna always comes home. He paused like he couldn't wait to twist the knife. Ask her about Matthew. Who, I asked. The fiancé before you. Orthopedic surgeon. Good family. Wealth. Future. But we didn't like his attitude. Took a few months, but we turned Anna around. She broke off the engagement. Came home in tears. Daddy fixes things. The smugness in his voice chilled me. On the way home, I called Anna's old college roommate Marley. What do you know about Matthew? There was a long pause, then a quiet, "Oh, God, that was a mess. He adored her." But her parents made her believe he cheated. They planted fake messages. Anna didn't trust him anymore. He tried to explain, but by then it was too late. That was the moment it all snapped into focus. This wasn't just about me. This was a pattern, decades in the making. Controlling. Manipulative. Anyone who helped Anna think for herself was surgically removed from her life. I didn't tell Anna that night. Instead, I got to work. I tracked down Matthew. He was hesitant at first, but once I explained, he sent me old emails between him and Anna, proof of the manipulations, the orchestrated sabotage. I contacted two of her high school friends, girls who'd vanished from her life without explanation. They shared eerily similar stories. Vanessa, Owen's wife, continued feeding me footage. One clip showed Elaine and Richard in the kitchen laughing. Once the divorce is final, Richard said, "Well, have her move back in. Get her back to herself. Maybe even back into the nonprofit. And this time, well, help her meet someone serious." I put everything, emails, videos, documents, onto OneDrive. Then I invited Owen and Vanessa over for dinner. I didn't warn Anna. I needed her to see it raw. After dessert, I hooked up my laptop to the living room TV. "There's something you both need to watch," I said. For the next hour, the room was silent save for the audio of Elaine's voice. Richards plans the security footage from their own home. Anna didn't move. Owen kept whispering, "That's not them. That can't be them." When it ended, Anna turned to me, her face pale, her eyes wet. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I needed you to see it," I said. "Not just what they did to me, what they've done to you your whole life." Owen stood up abruptly. "You edited this. You had to." Vanessa touched his arm gently. "They did the same to me, Owen. Why do you think they started treating me so well after we had Ellie?" A grandchild meant leverage. His mouth parted in disbelief. "You never told me." "I tried," she said softly, "but you never wanted to hear it." Later that night, Anna crawled into bed beside me. "I need time to process all of this," she whispered. "But I believe you. And I'm sorry I doubted." The next morning, Elaine called. Anna put it on speaker. "Sweetheart," her mother chirped, "I've been thinking maybe it's time you come stay with us for a little while, just to clear your head. Some space might help you and Caleb gain perspective." Mom Anna cut her off, voice like steel. "I've seen the videos." Silence. "What videos?" Elaine said, her voice suddenly hollow. "Drugging Caleb's drink. Manipulating me. Trying to destroy our marriage." Anna's voice didn't shake, it rang clear and certain. Another pause. Sweetheart Elaine's voice returned brittle and falsely calm. "Whatever he's shown you, it's been twisted. You know Caleb has always resented our family. He never fit in." Anna's tone hardened. "We're coming over tonight, all of us, Caleb, Owen, Vanessa, and me. We're going to talk. No more lies." After she hung up, she turned to me. "They'll deny everything. They'll try to flip this on you." I nodded. "I know. So what's our plan?" For the first time in weeks, I smiled. "We tell the story. And this time, we tell it my way." That night, we pulled up to the Whitmore estate. Their Georgian-style home sat like a fortress of old money and ego. I brought my camera gear. Vanessa and Owen were already in the living room, perched on the edge of the cream-colored couch. Elaine stood when we entered, eyes sharp, lips tight. Richard appeared from the hallway with his usual practiced charm. "I understand there's been some confusion," he said, already dismissing the confrontation. "No confusion," I replied, setting up my tripod. "I'm filming this. For the family archive." Elaine's eyes flashed. "Absolutely not. This is private." "Exactly," I said. "Family business. And family. Even if you've spent years trying to pretend otherwise." For the next 2 hours we laid it all out. The attempted poisoning, the tampering, Matthew, the pattern, the manipulation that had shaped both Anna's and Owen's lives since they were children. Elaine denied, deflected, her voice growing thinner with every clip, every printed email. Richard, at first smug, began to shift uncomfortably. Anna stood at last, her voice steady. "I love you. You're my parents. But what you've done is cruel. And it ends tonight." Owen stood too. "We're not kids anymore. You don't get to choose our lives." Elaine burst into tears, not out of remorse, but from the realization that control was slipping through her fingers. Richard looked stunned, his power unraveling in slow motion. As we left, I placed a USB drive on the mantel. "What's that supposed to be?" Richard asked. "It's everything I said. The footage, the emails, all of it. I'm not going to ruin your reputation. That would hurt Anna, and it'd never do that." I paused in the doorway. "But if you ever come near our marriage again, if you whisper so much as a word to poison her mind, this goes to your board, your country club, every person whose opinion you value more than your children." For the first time since we met, Richard looked at me with something like respect. "I underestimated you," he said quietly. "Yes," I replied. "You did." 6 months passed. Anna and Owen started therapy, slowly untangling the quiet damage their parents had done. Richard and Elaine kept their distance. A few polite messages. No more games. Then came an invitation Christmas dinner. "A fresh start," the card read. Anna wanted to go. "They're still my parents," she said. "And maybe they're trying." I agreed, though I knew better than to believe in sudden redemption. That night the house looked warm, welcoming. Elaine had made her famous roast. Richard even asked about my latest exhibit with what sounded like genuine interest. After dinner, he gestured toward his study. "Join me for a minute," I followed. He poured 2 scotches and handed me one. "I've been thinking about your work," he said. "Photography's been good to you, but have you thought about expansion? I could bring you into the firm. Junior partner track. Big salary. Bigger future." I held the glass but didn't drink. "Why?" I asked. "Your family," he said smoothly. "And I respect how you handled the unpleasantness. You protected Anna. You stood firm. That's admirable." I set the glass on the table. "I appreciate the offer. But no." His smile tightened. "Caleb, don't be short-sighted. This is an olive branch, a way forward." "No," I said again. "It's another leash. And I don't wear those." He dropped the mask. "Everyone has a price." I stood. "That's where you're wrong. And that's why, for all your wealth, you'll never understand how I won." "You don't understand your daughter?" I thought, as I stepped back into the dining room. Elaine was flipping through photo albums with Anna, pointing at an old snapshot. "Look at this," she cooed. "You were so happy when you still lived at home." Anna glanced up and saw my face. She could tell something had shifted. I gave her the smallest nod. She stood. "Mom? Dad?" Her voice was steady. "We have something to share." Everyone turned. Caleb and I were having a baby. 3 months along. The room froze. Elaine's surprise was real. But she recovered fast, rushing over with tears in her eyes, hugging her daughter like nothing had ever happened. Richard followed slower, stiffly, shaking my hand. "Congratulations," he said. "Thank you," I replied quietly. Then, so only he could hear, "This child will never be a pawn in your games. I promise you that." His jaw tightened, but he gave a slight nod. He understood. That night on the drive home, Anna held my hand across the console. "They'll never really change, will they?" "No," I answered honestly, "but they'll have to accept that we have." 3 weeks later, we received a certified letter from Richard's legal team. Inside was a deed to the house we'd been renting, now transferred to our name, and paperwork establishing a trust for our unborn child. No note, no explanation, no strings. It wasn't an apology. Richard wasn't capable of that. But it was something. An acknowledgement that we weren't going anywhere and that we had won. Our daughter was born in late summer. We named her Clara after my mother. Elaine and Richard visited the hospital, bringing tasteful gifts, keeping their distance, posing for a few photos, and then quietly leaving. No advice, no lectures. Over the following months, something like normalcy took root. They stopped trying to steer our lives. They didn't apologize, but they stopped interfering. And sometimes that's a start. One evening, as I edited photos in my home studio, Anna came in with Clara on her hip. "My mom called," she said. "They want us to come for Christmas." I looked up from the screen. "What do you want to do? I think we should go. But with conditions. We stay at a hotel. We leave when we want. And no unsupervised time with Clara." I nodded. "That sounds fair." She sat beside me, gently bouncing the baby. "You know," she said, "I used to think success meant making my parents proud, chasing their approval." And now she looked down at Clara, then at me. "Now I know success is choosing the people I stand beside and standing by them with everything I have." 2 weeks before Christmas, a thick envelope arrived. It was Richard's company annual report. My photos were on nearly every page. Landscapes, interiors, portraits, images I'd taken on my own terms. With it was a short note: "Hired the best photographer I know. Thought you'd want a copy." It wasn't a grand gesture. Not forgiveness, not even reconciliation. But it was something quieter. Respect, maybe. Recognition of boundaries, of reality. I didn't call to thank him. He didn't expect it. We both understood this was about something else. That spring, I opened my own gallery in downtown Asheville. At the opening, Anna stood beside me, Clara in her arms. My parents flew in from Oregon. Friends, clients, and artists packed the space. Elaine and Richard came, too late, quiet, polite. Elaine held Clara briefly, only under Anna's watchful eye. Richard shook my hand, nodded approvingly at the displays, and left without offering advice about my business. As Anna and I locked up that night, she asked, "Do you think they've really changed?" I thought for a moment. "No," I said, "but they've accepted that they can't change us. And sometimes that's enough." Later, we sat on our back porch, the stars rising over the Blue Ridge Mountains, Clara sleeping upstairs. It hit me then I hadn't beaten them by winning their game. I'd won by refusing to play it. I stood my ground, protected what mattered, and built something better, not with manipulation, but with quiet strength, persistence, and truth. In the end, that was the real revenge, living free on my own terms with the people I loved beside me.